to people about was somebody was insisting to me that the place, first of all, they said they did an ICP test and their alkalinity was X. And I said, ICP doesn't test alkalinity.
No.
Somebody else came back in and said, oh, it depends on where it's from. And I went, no, it doesn't depend on where it's from. It can't. It's not how the machine works. And they said, but here they give me an alkalinity number. And I said, well, that doesn't mean that they're not doing it. They're doing it with the titration. And they're also giving you a number to 2 decimal places, which seems insane for me for DKH.
Yeah.
And they said, well, no, it's a lab. It's a professional lab because they're going to 2 decimal places. And I went, I don't think I've ever seen anything but math give you 2 decimal places of DKH. I don't think the resolution to test to 2 decimal places exists.
It's almost like a marketing ploy.
It's like there's a couple of principles called limit of detection and limit of quantitation. That's for ultra low levels, being like it's 0.004 ppm, and it's like that might be at the limit of detection, but not at the limit of quantitation. But basically, you can't measure those ultra small things accurately, but you can detect that they're there. So that's one principle. Going to 2 decimal places on a laboratory instrument is possible, but it's way harder than even some of the manufacturers of these devices say. So like if we go to a laboratory pH probe, like the one I have in the lab, which is, it's a $900 probe with like $1,000 meter attached to it. And that's kind of entry level.
Right.
I talked to an expert, one of their, she's basically a sales rep, but also she has a PhD. So a lot of the sales reps of these companies also have PhDs. So generally you can, some of them are crazy. Some of them are actually good at delivering knowledge on the product. But the short story is that she said in, the most kind of ideal conditions, you're going to be lucky with this meter to get, 0.05 pH accuracy. And I'm like, that's actually a lot worse than I had anticipated. But the meter can read to 0.001 of a pH unit. It shouldn't really even exist on the meter. And this happens with balances and scales as well.
Right. So my thought is that, first of all, if it was a professional grade lab, you wouldn't be getting results in DKH, number one.
No, it would probably be like milliequivalents per liter.
And I think if you do the math with milliequivalents, you'll get decimals. So I think that's what they're doing. But I can't believe there's a titration test that can accurately parse, that fineness.
It's up to the experimentalist to know when to report how many values. So like, that's like, that could be a whole episode. So I'm trying to think of how to distill this down. Like you should know, like, okay, I have a laboratory pH meter. It goes to the, thousandths of a decimal place. I'm not reporting that in literature. You know what I'm reporting in literature when we publish a couple of papers is the nearest 10th.
Right.
Even I could get higher resolution. I'm like, I know that that's meaningless because of air propagation through, the air of the instrument on the day, the air of you propagate error through every analysis, and that basically contaminates your final result.
Yeah.
But you should know that. And if I saw in a journal that they said, the pH of my medium was 8.003, I'd be like, you're a fucking crackhead, and that's not real. And you be lucky. You should just report it to the nearest 10th of a decimal place like everybody else.
I think there's no way we're going to get this to happen. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think, I for a while I was bummed about it and I was like, oh, well, we'll just, I'm not even going to try anymore. And, but now I kind of think, well, as long as some people are talking about it, at least it's being talked about. But that's, I know.
I think that Google Sheets we have going. If we can get that better, we can put I'd be happy to post that on like a local forum and post it on a couple of pages, and I think that would help a lot.
I think if we can make it anything that we think is robust in any way, and it doesn't have to be that robust, we could put it anywhere. It doesn't have to just be shared around. We could publish it in a hobby mag or something, or somewhere, and get it out. Because it seems like it, and write up about, what are we talking about? We're talking about understanding the practicalities of testing, right? That's all we're talking about.
But exactly.
Oh, maybe you and I should write a skeptical reef keeping article about it. We could do that.
But therein,
I'm sorry. Or you could just write it. This is all your idea, and you are quite capable. I don't have to be attached to everything.
It's just time right now.
Therein lies the problem of our hobby, in that if you do that sort of tomfoolery in a scientific journal, they call each other out. If you do that in the aquarium industry, I was about to say more than half of the people are like, wow. And it's like, but if you're another person that runs that equipment and stuff, and is in a lab, and you're like, no, bullshit, dude, blah, 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 blah. But regular hobbyists are like, oh, cool, man, he measured it to 2 decimal points, so that's for sure is good.
At the same time, I feel bad because look how long it's taken. I've been doing this for 30 or 40 years, since 1832, when Ben was banging people that in his
had syphilis
in the old stagecoach.
Ye old aquariums. It's taken me so long to get around the idea that, I'm back to now that all testing sucks. All testing sucks. You should squint at all testing. All about testing is in that lab with that instrument, with that person, that's what they got. And everyone kind of knows that there's a big error bar there. Everyone who reads those things knows it, but the general population doesn't. And they, why should they?
But then you get people that post on forums this absolutist crap.
See, I don't know.
They know based on these numbers.
But I think one thing that would really help testing, and I've tried to push this locally, is reference standards. And they even make a couple of commercial ones, like you're having a testing problem, test your reference standard. So like, I was playing around with this. I had some issues with the Mastertronic. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I just made my own reference standard, just made it in the lab, and I made a 60 ppm nitrate standard. And the HANA checker was close to that. It was like 58, 57 ppm. And I'm like, that is great. I was expecting the HANA checker to be within 15 ppm of it, and I would have been happy. That's my expectation. And I think people, have a fucking panic attack over half a ppm. And it's like, whoa, it's not that good. And when I got that close on repetitive measurements, I'm like, shit, like this little fucking pink egg thing is a lot better than I thought it would be for a standard. And I use that standard in the Mastertronic. It was like 10 ppm off. I'm like, great. Is it consistent? It's consistent, easy. I can, calibrate an offset and just kind of know in my head, here's the difference between these two if I have to do a manual versus that.
Yeah, well,
it's
but
those principles.
But it's so hard to get that. I don't know how. I think we just keep doing and not really worrying about, does everybody get it and jump on that bandwagon? Because they're not. I mean, people don't care. And like you said, it's in industry literature. All the bad stuff is shows up in a vetting process because it's out there on places that should vet their stuff before they publish it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not. So, and then I don't know about forums, man. I don't know about forums.
I think they're great for mining information. I use it all the time to say how many, oh, look, there's 50 reports of this. Okay,
Right.
I can do it. Right. There's power there. And if we had like a brief AI, it could process all that information. And
Right.
do
That's what
things for us.
I did a little bit of that, trying to just find how many people were on forums for an article I wrote. And I had to just guess and be generous. Boy, shouldn't Python be able to scrub everything for us like that? We probably just need an AI.
Sure, someone, I wish I was computationally.
Hey, if there's somebody listening or watching who's good at that stuff, let us know. We got a bunch of things we would like the numbers for. Now, of course, numbers coming from forms, that's not definitive at all. That's, the big error bar of that is we took this from forums, so it's all self-reported stuff. It's not.
Yeah, but it's all about the kind of question you're asking, right? And I think like that's where it's powerful. I think when you're trying to compare to things, it's going to be really difficult. But when you're seeing the presence of, that's where the power could come in something like that.
Sure.
Case reports of something happening. That's where it's like, but I think, back to the testing thing, get yourself a reference standard. But the thing is, anybody listening to me saying this probably knows this shit. It's the people who don't not really paying attention. They're not going to go pick one up. And it's like,
they don't, they're struggling with keeping their animals alive, and they're trying to do what people are telling them is the thing they're supposed to do. It's just nutty. And, trying to get people to get a reference solution. And then, of course, how do you know your reference solution is good?
Well, that's a good question. The other thing too is people suck at testing and cleanliness. So I went to another reefer's home and I was like, so have you done any testing? He's like, oh, I have these checkers over here. And I looked at them and the vials were still filled with old dirty water, and they were clearly mucked up and heavily scratched. And I'm like, no one's taking the time to educate you how to clean or maintain your things. And so that's one massive other problem, is educating people on how to keep things tidy, clean, neat, and functioning appropriately. But I don't know. I mean, that took I'm in my 4th fucking degree. So maybe it's impossible and we should just give up now.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think we should give up, but I think we should let go of the idea that we are somehow going to flip the light switch for people. You know what I mean? They're just, this is stuff that you only kind of absorb by doing it over and over again and thinking about it. It's not an entry-level deal.